The storm outside had nothing on the storm in his heart. Noah stood frozen, the faint hum of the city 47 floors below drowned by the silence between them. Across the glass-walled conference room, Ava Sinclair, CEO of Sinclair Industries, the woman known in every financial magazine as the Iron Queen, pointed at him with trembling control. Her voice was calm, but her eyes betrayed a storm of their own. "Pretend I'm your wife," she said quietly, every word landing like a hammer on his chest. "Or pack your things tonight. If you believe in kindness, in second chances, in stories that remind us what the heart is truly capable of, please like, comment, share, and subscribe. Your support helps us keep telling stories that heal and inspire hearts across the world." Noah Reed wasn't a man of power or privilege. He was a janitor, an invisible worker in the gleaming glass kingdom that people like Ava owned. But behind that navy uniform was a story no one cared to hear. He was a single dad, raising a 6-year-old girl named Lila who walked with braces on her legs and carried a stuffed bear wherever she went. Every night, after scrubbing floors and emptying bins, he'd rush home, heat up soup, and tell her stories about mommy in heaven and angels that listened to little girls' wishes. She always asked if angels could fix her legs. He always smiled, even when it hurt to say, "One day, sweetheart, one day." He had no idea that his quiet world would collide with Ava Sinclair's chaos. That IT started with a meeting he wasn't supposed to overhear. Late one night, as he cleaned the executive floor, Noah heard 2 board members whispering about a leaked story, an expose threatening to destroy Ava's reputation and company. Her investors were panicking, her marriage had ended in a scandal, and her competitors were circling like sharks. The press was painting her as a heartless woman who'd used her ex-husband's name and fortune to climb higher. "She's losing everything," one voice had said. "If she doesn't appear stable, her entire empire's gone." Noah didn't think much of it, until she called him into her office the next morning. Ava looked like marble carved into human form. Her posture perfect, her voice clipped, her eyes sharp enough to cut through excuses. But beneath the surface, Noah saw something else: fear. She didn't sit. She paced, like someone who'd made a decision she hated. "I know about your daughter," she began coldly. "I know your financial situation. I know you can't afford her medical treatments anymore." His chest tightened. He wanted to ask how she knew, but she didn't give him a chance. "I need a husband, at least in public. The board demands it. Investors need stability. My lawyers can make this legal, clean, and temporary." Then, she looked at him with eyes that finally softened. "If you agree, I'll take care of everything. Your daughter's surgery, her schooling, your debt." It didn't sound like an offer. It sounded like a lifeline wrapped in chains. For Noah, saying no meant losing everything that kept his daughter alive. Saying yes meant becoming a lie. That night, he sat beside Lila's bed, watching her sleep, her small hand resting on her bear's paw. Her breathing was soft and steady. He whispered, "Daddy's going to fix everything." And the next morning, he told Ava yes. The wedding was a spectacle. Cameras flashing, headlines roaring. Ava Sinclair finds love again. No one knew the truth. To the world, they were a perfect couple. To each other, they were strangers bound by desperation. She wore diamonds. He wore borrowed confidence. In front of the press, she smiled like a queen. In private, she barely looked at him. Their mansion had endless rooms, but silence filled every one to at first. Noah thought he could survive the pretense. He did what she asked, stood beside her at charity galas, learned to nod at the right people, hold her hand when cameras were near. He kept reminding himself, "This is for Lila." But it wasn't long before he saw the cracks in her armor. Late at night, he'd pass by her office and see her sitting in the dark, staring at old photographs. He once heard her whisper, "I built everything, but I lost myself." He never mentioned it, but something changed inside him that night. Then came the first real test of their facade. During a public gala, a journalist confronted Noah, mocking his past, his job, his clothes. The man sneered, "From janitor to trophy husband, huh? What's that like?" The crowd laughed. Noah froze. But before he could respond, Ava stepped forward, fire in her eyes. "You're mocking a man who works harder in one day than you've ever worked in your life," she said, her voice shaking with rage. "You call him a janitor? I call him a man who never gave up on his child." That's worth more than all the titles in this room. The silence that followed was deafening. That night, she didn't go to her separate room. She sat beside Noah by the fireplace, wine in hand, eyes softer than he'd ever seen. "You weren't supposed to defend me," he said quietly. She smiled faintly. "You weren't supposed to make me care." Days turned into weeks, and the line between pretending and feeling began to blur. Ava started joining him for breakfast. Sometimes, she'd ask about Lila's favorite stories. Sometimes, she'd just listen. She began showing up at Lila's therapy sessions, sitting quietly in the back. The little girl started calling her Miss Ava, and one afternoon, after a difficult session, she hugged Ava's leg and whispered, "You're like my mommy." Ava's eyes filled instantly, and that was the first time Noah saw her cry. But happiness never came easy for people like them. One evening, Ava's ex-husband returned, with a plan to expose their arrangement. He threatened to go public, to ruin her and strip her company bare. Noah found her sitting in her office afterward, pale and shaking. "It's over," she whispered. "If they find out the truth, I'll lose everything." Noah walked up, his voice steady. "Then let them. Because if everything you've built means nothing without lies, maybe it was never yours." She looked at him in disbelief, then in gratitude, and something unspoken passed between them. An understanding that for the first time, they were on the same side not because of a contract, but because of choice. The storm hit the next morning. Headlines exploded. Ava Sinclair's marriage a sham. Investors withdrew, cameras swarmed, and the empire began to crumble. But what no one expected was what came next. Noah stepped in front of the microphones, holding Ava's hand. "Yes," he said, his voice strong. "Our marriage started as an agreement. But in pretending, we found something real. She's not a monster. She's human. And I'm proud to stand beside her, not because of money, but because of who she's become." The silence that followed was the longest of their lives. Then, slowly, applause began to spread through the crowd. First hesitant, then unstoppable. Not everyone believed them, but for the first time, it didn't matter. They weren't pretending anymore. Months passed. The company survived, not because of PR tricks, but because Ava changed how she led. She started programs for single parents, offered scholarships for disabled children, and opened a foundation in Lila's name. Noah left his old uniform behind, becoming head of community outreach, a title that, for the first time, he felt he'd earned. One sunny afternoon, Noah watched Lila run. Without braces, her laughter echoing across the garden. Ava stood beside him, eyes glistening. "She's free," she whispered. "So are we," he said softly. She smiled, and for once, there were no cameras, no contracts, no conditions. Just two people who'd found something neither of them were looking for, but both desperately needed. If this story touched your heart, please like, comment, share, and subscribe. Your support keeps stories like this alive. Stories about hope, redemption, and the quiet power of love that finds us when we least expect it. Speech balloon before you go. Tell us in the comments. Do you believe love can grow from the most unexpected circumstances? We'd love to hear your thoughts. And so, the single dad who once scrubbed floors and the millionaire CEO who once ruled empires found something more valuable than success: each other. Not in the glare of cameras, but in the simple truth that sometimes the greatest love stories begin as lies told for the right reasons. White heavy checkmark, names changed only. Story 100% preserved exactly as before. Would you like me to make a version where they're from slightly different social backgrounds, like small town versus corporate city, for your next upload too?